Hey there! If you love learning cool facts about famous people, places, and amazing stories from around the world, then you're in the right spot. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for celeb info updates and join our community of curious minds. We've got tons of awesome content coming your way, so stick around and let's explore together. George W. Bush's Prairie Chapel Ranch, a president's Western retreat and Texas country lifestyle. When the big metal gates at Prairie Chapel Ranch open up, you see a big but simple house appear. This place wasn't made to show off power, it was built to give someone peace and quiet. This is the spot where America's 43rd president stopped having fancy meetings in suits and instead started working with cows and living a country life. What kind of life does George W. Bush have now that he's not in the White House anymore? Today we're checking out his Prairie Chapel Ranch, the super cool F-150 King Ranch truck sitting in his driveway, and the down-to-earth way of living of a Texas guy who used to run the whole country. Now let's go back in time to see where everything started, his younger days and how he went from working in Texas oil fields all the way to becoming president. George W. Bush's story starts on a really hot July day back in 1946 in a place called New Haven, Connecticut. Back then, his dad, George H.W. Bush, was just a young college student at Yale. He was a brave guy who had fought in the war and would later become the 41st president. His mom, Barbara Pierce Bush, had only been married for about a year. Right from when he was born, young George's life was connected to powerful and rich American families. His grandpa, Prescott Bush, was actually a senator from Connecticut. Politics wasn't just something his family did sometimes. It was like their family job that got passed down. Being the oldest son, Bush had to carry two. Family name like it was something really important. He got sent to a fancy school called Phillips Academy in Andover, Massachusetts. This school was where lots of rich and important American kids went. There, he wasn't the smartest kid getting perfect grades, but he was super popular and fun. Everyone liked being around him. He was full of energy and always ready to make people laugh. Bush led the cheerleading squad instead of being stuck in boring study groups. He wasn't the bookworm type. He was more like the entertainment guy. Then he went to Yale University, which is where his father had gone to college too. Bush studied history, joined a secret club called Skull and Bones, and became the main cheerleader. He enjoyed hanging out with people way more than he liked doing homework. He liked football better than sitting around talking about deep thoughts. He was charming and friendly, but just okay at school stuff. When he tried to get into the University of Texas Law School, they said no. That could have stopped his dreams right there. But life had different ideas for him. Harvard Business School said yes to him. Many years later, he became the very first U.S. president ever to have an MBA degree. That title fit him perfectly since he was both a business guy and a politician. In 1968, when the Vietnam War was a huge deal, Bush joined something called the Texas Air National Guard. While other young men went far away to fight in the war, Bush stayed in America and learned how to fly an F-102 fighter jet. He flew planes for many hours, got higher ranks, and learned the strict rules that come with being in the military. But his record wasn't perfect at all. When politics started getting his attention, Bush missed some training days and skipped health checkups. Still, when his time in the military ended in 1974, he got an honorable discharge, which means he left in a good way. Some people who didn't like him asked questions about all this later on, but Bush just moved forward and kept trying to make his own way in life. In the middle of the 1970s, after getting his degree from Harvard and having that tough Texas attitude, Bush decided to try the oil business. He started a company called Arbusto Energy in 1977. He put all his money and hope into finding oil underground, but the oil business was wild and unpredictable. Sometimes people got really rich, and sometimes they lost everything. When oil prices dropped really low, Arbusto failed too. But Bush didn't give up. He combined his company with another one called Spectrum 7 and later worked with a company called HKN Inc. In 1989, George W. Bush got a bunch of people with money together to buy the Texas Rangers baseball team. The price was $86 million. For Bush, owning a baseball team wasn't just about making money, it meant something special to him personally. He threw himself completely into being the team's managing partner. He showed up at games all the time, shook hands with fans, and sat with regular people instead of in fancy special boxes. Everyone saw him as just one of them. He was easy to talk to, funny, and acted like a real Texan. Bush's first try at being in politics happened in 1978 when he tried to become a congressman in West Texas. He lost that race and it really hurt his feelings, but he figured out something super important. People don't really care if you have a famous last name. They care if you actually understand how they live their lives. By the early 1990s, after helping with his dad's presidential campaigns, Bush felt ready to try again. In 1994, he ran to become governor of Texas against a popular Democrat named Ann Richards. Most people thought there was no way he could win. But the way he talked simply and honestly, his sense of humor, and his promise to be a caring conservative really connected with voters. He won the election. Just like that, George W. Bush became Governor Bush. When he was governor, he lowered taxes by $2 billion, made education programs bigger, and helped Texas become a top state for wind power. He wasn't just making boring policies. He was creating an image of himself as strong, religious, and friendly. By the year 2000, the Republican Party saw something in him that many Texas people already knew. They saw a man who could lead with strong beliefs and a good heart. When Bush said he wanted to run for president, he promised to bring back respect and honor to the White House. With Dick Cheney as his vice president pick, he talked about being strong, having faith, and caring about family values. The 2000 election against Al Gore became one of the closest presidential races in all of American history. It ended with the Supreme Court making the final decision that Bush won. Bush started being president feeling hopeful and excited about his plans, but something terrible was about to happen. The September 11th attacks in 2001 completely changed his presidency and his whole life. The wars that started after that, the big choices he had to make, and dealing with a country where people disagreed strongly would shape who he was forever. When he finished being president in 2009, the country was tired and not many people approved of the job he did. But behind all the politics was still just the guy from Texas who loved baseball, had strong religious faith, and loved wide-open skies. Like he once said, "Texas is where I can breathe, where the soil smells like cedar and freedom." And it's that same Texas way of being, quiet, tough, and lasting forever, that shows what his life is like now. Prairie Chapel Ranch is sometimes called the Texas White House. Hidden in the pretty golden hills with whispering live oak trees in central Texas sits one of America's most quietly famous properties. It's called Prairie Chapel Ranch, spread out across about 1,600 acres of sunny countryside near a tiny town named Crawford, which is about 25 miles west of Waco. This isn't just any ranch. When George W. Bush and his wife Laura first walked on this land, they weren't looking for something super fancy and expensive. They wanted to find peace and quiet. It was here, under huge Texas skies stretched out with clouds, that the couple decided to build their special getaway place. Building started soon after Bush won the election to become the 43rd president of the United States. By 2001, Prairie Chapel Ranch was finished, a home that showed not just where he came from, but what mattered most to him. The main house was designed by an architect named David Hammond. It shows how you can build something really nice without going overboard. It's not huge or like a palace. Instead, it's purposely humble and simple. A handmade building that fits into nature around it instead of trying to be the boss of the landscape. With its limestone walls, big porches that go deep, and huge windows that open up to miles and miles of Texas grasslands, the home lets in light wind and shows off the beautiful land perfectly. Every little thing from how the stones were placed to which way the breeze blows was carefully thought about. "It's a house that breathes," Hammond said one time. And when Texas gets really hot, that's a pretty big deal. Inside the house, everything feels warm and personal. Kenneth Blasingame, who also decorated the White House living areas when Bush was president, filled the rooms with handmade furniture, colors that look like dirt and earth, and materials from nearby. There's nothing too fancy or showing off, no sparkly chandeliers or gold bathroom fixtures. Instead, there's the rough comfort of leather, wood, and stone. The rooms feel like people actually live there, down to earth and real. It's more like what a rancher's home would look like than what you'd expect from someone who used to lead the world. The outdoor landscaping was done by Michael Williams. It celebrates how wild Texas naturally is instead of trying to tame it and make it look fake. Native grasses, mesquite trees, and wildflowers go on and on to the horizon. This makes sure the ranch stays part of Texas's natural beauty around Crawford. Even the guest house has some cool history to it. Heritage Restorations built it using old wooden beams from an 18th century English barn that they saved and reused. They added some practical Texas style to it. Staying true to how the Bush family cares about the environment, the home also has a geothermal energy system that heats and cools the house. That was pretty impressive for the early 2000s and shows that the president was interested in living in a way that doesn't hurt nature. It mixes old traditions with new ideas. Old-time craftsmanship meets quiet modern technology. But Prairie Chapel Ranch is way more than just cool buildings. It's full of memories. This was where President Bush spent weekends cutting brush and clearing plants. He rode mountain bikes with leaders from other countries and spent evenings sitting on the porch watching the sun go down over Texas fields. When he was president, people often called it the Western White House. He had important visitors like Vladimir Putin from Russia and Crown Prince Abdullah from Saudi Arabia come there. But beyond what it symbolized for the country, it stayed what it always was, a family home. When he's not in Texas, Bush goes to another special family property called Walker's Point Estate in Kennebunkport, Maine. Sitting on a rocky piece of land that sticks out into the Atlantic Ocean, this estate has been where the Bush family spends summers for many generations. Built in the early 1900s, the main house has survived countless storms from the ocean. It's a tough symbol of legacy and strength, kind of like the Bush family name itself. And while his houses tell stories about history and family heritage, his cars show something different. They give us a peek at the real man behind being president. The Texas guy who still loves driving on open roads. Car collection. If you think George W. Bush's garage has boring, quiet cars and old Secret Service SUVs in it, you're totally wrong. The former president's car lineup perfectly shows what his personality is like. Half Texas rancher, half leader of the free world with a surprising amount of cool, fast car style. 13. Ford F-150 King Ranch worth $70,000. This truck is like the spirit of Texas on four wheels. The King Ranch edition isn't just a regular pickup truck. It's like a cowboy living room on wheels wrapped in saddle brown leather and shiny chrome. Under the hood, there's a powerful V8 engine ready to pull heavy things, carry stuff, or just cruise down dusty Crawford roads easily. The inside is all fancy ranch style. Leather seats with special stitching, wood trim, and enough room to fit a whole week's worth of ranch tools and barbecue supplies. Bush once joked that this truck doesn't need Wi-Fi internet. It runs on dust, diesel fuel, and discipline. Lamborghini Aventador LP704 worth $400,000. Now this car is a surprise twist like something from a Netflix show. Parked right next to the cowboy truck sits a 700 horsepower Italian supercar. The Lamborghini Aventador LP704. It's completely opposite of Texas modesty and being humble. It's loud, sharp-looking, and super fast without any apologies. The Aventador zooms from sitting still to 60 miles per hour in less than 3 seconds. It can go as fast as an incredible 217 miles per hour at top speed. People say it was given to the family through a private collector event. This proves that even presidents like to have fun with some exotic excitement sometimes. Imagine Bush with wind blowing through his hair, driving through Texas back roads in a Lambo that sounds like it's announcing freedom itself. Cadillac DTS limousine called the Beast. And then, of course, there's the car that everyone remembers M when he was president, the Beast. The official White House presidential limousine built by Cadillac weighed more than 8 tons and could protect against a small army attacking it. Bulletproof, protected against bombs, sealed so chemical attacks couldn't get in. This was less like a car and more like a moving fortress on wheels. When Bush rode in the Beast down Pennsylvania Avenue or through Baghdad's Green Zone in Iraq, it wasn't about being comfortable. It was about being in command and showing power. The doors were 8 inches thick. The windows could stop bullets designed to go through armor. The gas tank was protected with special military foam. But those wheels and cars are only a tiny piece of the whole story. Because while the engines might be resting quietly now, the real power behind Bush's legacy comes from his empire of money and work after being president, income, and net worth. Today, George W. Bush's net worth is around $50 million. That's nowhere near the billions that Donald Trump brags about having, but it's still enough money to make him one of the richest living former U.S. presidents. Before he ever walked into the Oval Office, Bush was working deep in the Texas oil business. In 1977, fresh out of Harvard Business School and wanting to make his own path, he started Arbusto Energy. Later, it got renamed Bush Exploration. The company's goal was to drill for oil and gas all across Texas, but the market wasn't nice to him. After a few years in the 1980s, when oil prices crashed and he lost money, Bush's company merged into Spectrum 7. Eventually, it became part of Harken Energy. That business venture didn't make him rich, but it taught him valuable lessons about taking risks, doing business, and the up and down energy market that shaped Texas politics. The real big turning point, though, didn't come from oil. It came from baseball. In 1989, Bush and a group of investors bought a controlling interest in the Texas Rangers baseball team. His personal money that he put in was about $500,000. That seemed like not much at the time, but Bush took on a really big role as the team's managing general partner. He went to games, met with fans, and turned the Rangers into one of the most talked about teams in Major League Baseball. When the ownership group sold the team in 1998 for $250 million, Bush's original investment turned into $15 million. That was a huge amount of money that gave him the financial freedom to go into politics without worrying about having enough money. His years working in government surprisingly didn't add much to his wealth. As governor of Texas from 1995 to 2000, he made around $115,000 each year. And as president of the United States from 2001 to 2009, he got the standard $400,000 annual salary plus official extra money for expenses. That's respectable and good money, but it's nowhere near the kind of income that builds up to $50 million. It was what happened after being president that changed everything money-wise. Like other former presidents, Bush gets a lifetime pension of around $200,000 every year. He also gets Secret Service protection and the government pays for his office expenses. But the real money goldmine after leaving the White House comes from writing books and giving speeches to big groups. In 2010, Bush released his memoir called Decision Points. It was a really personal look at his time as president, from September 11th to the Iraq War. The book became a huge publishing success, selling more than 2 million copies all around the world. Bush made about $7 million from the money paid up front and from royalties. That success opened up a new creative chapter in his life. In 2017, he showed everyone his artistic side with a book called Portraits of Courage. It was a collection of his own paintings of U.S. veterans. After that came Out of Many One, which honored immigrants who did good things for American life. These projects not only added millions more dollars to his income, they also made his image softer. People saw a thoughtful side of the man who used to be defined by war and politics. And then there's the speaking circuit, which is the modern president's real money-making machine. Bush reportedly makes $100,000 to $175,000 every time he gives a speech. He talks about leadership, faith, democracy, and his years in the White House. Over the past 10 years, his speaking appearances have made him tens of millions of dollars. He's spoken at global forums, universities, and big company conferences. A single night standing behind the microphone now makes him more money than a whole year being president ever did. Still, even with all the news stories about oil, baseball, and book deals, Bush himself often changes the conversation to something else because for him, the truest way to measure success isn't just about what money he's made, it's about what he's given back to help others. Philanthropy means giving money and help to good causes. During his time as president and after, Bush and his wife Laura have quietly given hundreds of thousands of dollars every year to causes. These include disaster relief when bad things happen, education, health programs around the world, and helping veterans. Between 2002 and 2008, their yearly charitable donations were often 9 to 18% of their taxable income. The total sometimes reached over $210,000 in some years. One of the best examples of Bush's charity work is PEPFAR. That stands for the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief. Started in 2003, it's still one of the biggest global health programs in history. It promised an initial $15 billion to fight HIV and AIDS, mostly in Africa and the Caribbean. Since it started, PEPFAR has helped give life-saving treatment to millions of people. It dramatically lowered infection rates and gave countless families a second chance at life. Very few presidential programs have had such a real long-term humanitarian impact that helps so many people. Bush's caring and compassion went beyond just global health. He also gave to disaster relief and emergency aid. He and Laura regularly gave money to the American Red Cross, AmeriCares, and other organizations that help people on the ground during crises like September 11th, Hurricane Katrina, and disasters in other countries. Something really notable is that he teamed up with former President Bill Clinton for joint fundraising campaigns. They worked together after the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, Hurricane Katrina, and the 2010 Haiti earthquake. Together, they raised hundreds of millions of dollars for victims. Giving to religious organizations has also been a big part of Bush's charitable identity. He's a lifelong Methodist who often goes to Episcopal church services. Bush has supported many different religious charities, including the Salvation Army, Catholic Charities of New Orleans, and his local churches. Those are Tarrytown United Methodist and St. John's Episcopal in Washington. These organizations show his belief that faith communities play a really important role in helping with poverty, addiction, and disaster recovery. They often reach people that government programs can't help. His charity focus also includes education and programs for young people. Examples are the Boys and Girls Clubs of America and Martha's Table in Washington, D.C. Martha's Table gives food and education to poor children. Laura Bush used to be a librarian and teacher. She has made these efforts even bigger through literacy programs teaching people to read and women's education programs. Perhaps most personal to the former commander-in-chief is how committed he is to veterans and military families. Through the George W. Bush Institute's Veterans Program, he has fought for mental health care, help with finding jobs after military service, and helping families adjust when soldiers come home. This is for service members who served after the September 11th attacks. His book and art collection called Portraits of Courage both honors and financially supports wounded veterans. It blends being creative with having a purpose. The main foundation of his charity work after being president is the George W. Bush Presidential Center. It was established in 2009 in Dallas, Texas. Inside it, the Bush Institute continues his policy work. It works to advance global freedom, economic opportunity, education reform, empowering women, and public health. It works as both a think tank where smart people come up with ideas and as a humanitarian hub that helps people. It represents the same values Bush talked about throughout his presidency: freedom, responsibility, and compassion. Even in semi-retirement, where he's mostly done with official work, Bush's life has stayed defined by a sense of duty. Duty to God, to his country, and to the people whose lives he can help improve. Personal life. In the super hot Texas summer of 1977, a simple backyard barbecue completely changed George W. Bush's life. That was where he met Laura Welch. She was a quiet, smart librarian with a calm, grounded spirit that perfectly balanced out his fiery energy. Their connection happened right away. Just 3 months later, they got married. It was a whirlwind romance that turned into one of the longest-lasting partnerships in modern American politics. The Bushes built their life around family and faith. In 1982, they had twin daughters named Barbara and Jenna. The girls would grow up with everyone watching them in public all the time. Even though their father rose up in politics from being Texas governor to president, George and Laura worked hard to keep things feeling normal. The family went to church together, spent weekends watching baseball, and escaped whenever they could to their Prairie Chapel Ranch. There, the girls could run around free under the big, open Texas sky. As grown-ups, both daughters have followed meaningful paths doing their own things. Barbara Bush helped start the Global Health Corps. It's a nonprofit organization aimed at making healthcare better and fairer around the world. Jenna Bush Hager, meanwhile, became a well-known television journalist and author. She followed her mother's love of books and literature. Together, they've continued their parents' legacy of service and faith, though each does it in her own unique way. Inspired by Winston Churchill's philosophy that art could be a source of peace after having power, Bush picked up a paintbrush for the first time when he was in his late 60s. What started as a quiet, personal experiment turned into something he was passionate about. His portraits of veterans published in Portraits of Courage showed both how much he admired their sacrifice and his own emotional depth. Later, his Out of Many One collection had portraits of American immigrants. It showed his belief in unity and compassion. Critics had mixed opinions about his art, but his paintings connected with regular people. They offered a glimpse of vulnerability and reflection that few people expected from a former president. Of course, Bush's personal journey has also included its share of controversy and redemption, which means overcoming mistakes. His military record during the Vietnam War got questioned by people. His 1976 DUI arrest in Maine when he was caught drinking and driving became a defining moment. Bush has talked openly about it as a turning point. It was the moment that pushed him to stop drinking alcohol and to make his Christian faith stronger. In his own words, it was the beginning of a personal renewal. And then there was the 2000 election, one of the most controversial in American history. The recount in Florida and the Supreme Court's decision that followed cast a long shadow over his victory. It shaped how the public saw his presidency for many years. But through all of it, Bush leaned on family, faith, and humor. Those were the three constant things that helped him get through both winning and tough times. Now, in his years after politics, the man who was once defined by war and politics is more likely to be found with a paintbrush in his hand, a dog by his side, and a quiet smile under a Texas sunset, finally living the kind of peace he spent decades trying to find in the world of power. If you've enjoyed this look inside the ranch, the cars, and the legacy of America's 43rd president, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Share this video with your friends who love history. Stay tuned, because every home tells a story, and every legacy leaves a light shining in history. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next journey.